Hi guys, welcome to the Going Tiny project. I have a less than glamorous do-it-yourself project today, and I make my own composting toilet additive. I have an Envirolet composting toilet made in Eastern Canada, and they sell their own proprietary composting mix, and I don't think it's worth the amount that they charge and the shipping to do that. At least I haven't noticed any gains, though they advertise that it makes the toilet go quicker. But what I do is I buy a big bale, 10 cubic foot bundle of compressed compacted peat moss from the home store, and an eighth of it lasts me a year mix. So I use an eighth to make about a year's supply, which is basically 2 5-gallon drums, and the rest I either put in a community garden or give it to a friend to spread in their garden. And then I spend $5 on pet pine wood shavings, and I could be wrong on doing that. I used to add a lot of sawdust from building the tiny house, but I'm basically done with it. And the only thing I've left is cedar sawdust, and I'm told, and I could be wrong, it's very acidic, and that it'll throw off the pH in the compost and kind of stall things out. So I don't have any sort of science here, other than I would probably add about 2/3 of this peat moss to the bucket. And what I have here is actually, I get them from work. They're a stainless steel metal bucket that's airtight because they ship moisture absorbing packs in them. And I can get about one a month. And I just use one for outside because I can seal it up from the bugs, put it under the trailer, and I've got a 6-month batch. And then I'd make another one that's sitting inside next to the toilet. So I actually basically make it twice a year. And I add some of the pine chips. I think this really isn't for composting. I think it really helps with the odor though. A lot of just basic bucket composting toilet systems where they dump it outside just sprinkle wood chips on top. I don't want to add too much, and I don't want to make it too wood chip dense because it theoretically composes in the toilet. I think this would bind it up. So I try to add it for moisture control. Sorry for getting my fingers in the frame. And then the thing that's actually becoming hard to get because of all the gardeners, coffee grounds. I have a couple of coworkers that are gracious enough to actually dry them out and then give them to me. And if they aren't well dried out first, it'll mold because this is airtight, because there's no room to dry out, or they mold before you even get it in here. I was collecting quite a bit at work and I didn't give them adequate ventilation. And sure enough, I had nasty mold, and I wouldn't think, I could be wrong, but I wouldn't think adding mold to the composting toilet would be a great idea. I would think that it would quickly get out of hand. So I mix this up, and this is definitely not in the ratios. I would say the bulk of the material is definitely peat moss. The coffee grounds are like the pine chips. I think they add with odor control. And my toilet is vented outside, so it's not a big deal about odor control, because it goes outside. On a really cold, stale air day, there's just that cold chill in the ground, cold chill in the air, then we can smell it outside a little bit. But I would say probably 2/3 of this bucket is peat moss, and then the remaining third is probably half and half pine chips, uncompacted, like lightly sprinkled on top, and then coffee grounds. And I think I'm safer. I could be wrong after maybe someone that's really a biologist or a chemist that understands what's going on more. You may be able to put too much coffee grounds in there because I know they're acidic, just like the cedar. But I think it's more acceptable for whatever reason. And I actually think this does process through my composting system a little better than the mix that they provide or want to sell you. But that's all I do. I dry mix it and then seal the lid, and I've got a 6-month supply here. So again, 5-gallon bucket lasts me about 6 months, give or take. And that's with adding about a cup a day. And I don't really measure it. So basically the first use of the day, whether it's a number 1 or number 2, so to say, I sprinkle probably about a quarter of a cup on for me. So my wife and I live in the tiny house, so maybe a half cup the first use, I do that. And then anytime a number 2 happens, we sprinkle a little bit on top to keep the odor down for any of the outside, because we live kind of dense, and I'd hate for neighbors to get upset here. in the city. So I think on average I had about a cup a day. So thanks again for following along, and I know this wasn't glamorous, but there we go. Composting toilet mix.